Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the OCNJ Local, your podcast for everything happening here in America's greatest family resort. We're your hosts, Dominic Doherty and Drew Fazy. It's just kind of weird because normally I point and you're next to me, but now you're down in this
We
corner.
are your local guy.
Joining us today for this episode, Merchants Back Boardwalk Hotel, are someone who's no stranger to the podcast. They were on our last episode. Caitlin Quirk, president of the Downtown Merchants Association, and another repeat guest who was on previously, Wes Kasmark, president of the Boardwalk Merchants Association. So, Caitlin, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
We're going to record next week if you want to come on that show too. Might as well.
I'll be sick of seeing my face by then. So
We thought it would be a good idea to sit down and talk to you guys because, you know, between the Boardwalk Merchants and the Asbury Avenue Merchants, you two represent really the bulk of the business community here in Ocean City. And you both recently had some pretty important meetings with similar outcomes. So we wanted to talk about the process, how you got to that point, and really your organizations themselves. So, Wes, why don't we start with you? Tell us about your group. You know, how often do you meet? How many members do you have? How many people, merchants, Boardwalk merchants, are generally in attendance? That kind of thing.
Okay, thanks for having us on, guys. So BMA has met for years, going all the way back to the 90s. You could set your watch to 10 o'clock on a Wednesday at the Music Pier, or depending on what the topic was of the meeting, sometimes we would choose a different venue if it had to be more people. But business owners, all business owners or merchants are invited to attend. This is how it is for the downtown as well. There's no membership fee. If you want to come, you can come. I have an email list of roughly, it changes because, owners come and go and, merchants come and go over the years, but roughly, 70 to 80 people are on my list. And depending on, I guess, what the agenda topic is, will dictate how many people actually attend these meetings. I can tell you that you can come unannounced. You can show up. If you're not on the email list, and I usually put you on the email list, we're pretty easy to find. Anybody who's been doing business on the Boardwalk knows this at this point. A lot of times, the topics like this topic, people would attend or send somebody to represent them, unless they couldn't do so. In this case, that did happen also a couple times. But we've been doing this. This is no new thing. This topic is a big deal, and required. Wasn't like we just met secretly and had this meeting. We had 4 meetings before the meeting we voted, really trying to gather as much information as we could. This is obviously an important topic, not something like voting on a family night or something like that. So we wanted to make sure we were very thorough in the process. And all the merchants are in the same boat that, we were sad when Wonderland closed. Nobody wanted to see Wonderland leave, and part of the vetting process was during this process that made this very clear to us that there was not going to be an amusement park, like that it's not a sustainable, viable thing, which, we got that from talking to amusement park owners. We're in a resort tourism community that, you got a 60-day window to make a living, and starting a park from scratch is very difficult anywhere. And in the climate we're in right now, it was made very clear to us, pretty much impossible to do right now. So after talking to like the city solicitor who came to our meeting, a lot of experts in the field, it became very clear to us that this was what Eustace needed, the concept of what he's doing as the vote showed. It was we were 22-3, and I'm a little long-winded here. I'm sorry about that. One last topic on that, really quick. It also an owner only gets one vote. So if you have 8 businesses, you have one vote. This specific meeting, if you're a merchant, you can vote. Also, so either one can vote, both can vote in the sense of if an owner owns 2 properties, a merchant can get one vote, and the owner can vote one of the properties himself also. But this specific meeting, the association was very well attended as far as representing the boardwalk, for sure. That vote could have, if every owner got a vote for every store they own, that vote would have been much closer to like a 52-3 kind of thing.
And Caitlin, similar situation downtown?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to echo to what Wes was saying, starting with like membership fees. So to be a downtown merchant, you don't, as a business owner, you don't have to pay a membership fee. Where the membership comes into play, though, is you are part of the SID district, and the buildings that reside in the SID district pay an additional tax for our organization, which is where all of our funds come into play. And the boardwalk merchants have a different amount of businesses that pay into that SID tax, which gives them a whole other coffer of money that allows them to do, family night, any activities on the boardwalk, fireworks, things that, promote the district. And same with the downtown. The downtown, it's only for buildings that reside between 6th and 10th Street that are part of our organization. So those are the only businesses that were allowed to take a vote in our vote. As far as, represent.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but is that property owner or merchant or both?
So the property owner pays the tax, but it gives the business owner membership into the organization.
So it's the merchant who's the member.
Yeah. And as far as the vote goes, it is one, correct me if I'm wrong, Wes, but it was one SID tax, one vote, correct?
That's right. Yeah, our districts run exactly the same.
So there's there's a couple gray areas, right? So for instance, I own Bowfish and I own the building, so I got one vote. I also own another store that I'm currently in, which I just opened, and the building owner, because I wasn't allowed to have a second vote, the building owner got to have a vote for this property. But the way that we kind of looked at it is, when you vote in any presidential election or any other election, you're one person, you get one vote. So you don't want to have the people with the most financial gain in getting an unweighted vote, is kind of how that works.
Understood.
So yeah, I would say that.
Congratulations for opening Garb
Thank
on
you.
the 1000 block of Asbury.
Yeah.
Soft opening
I
this
thought
past
it's
Sunday.
like March 28th. Did I miss that day?
March 23rd.
23rd.
23rd. I see. I got half. I doubled it.
Yeah.
There we go. Congratulations. That's awesome.
So yeah, so our vote, the room was packed. We had really good attendance. Again, like some of the merchants that were in the room were unable to vote because they resided outside of the SID district that pays into being part of our group. We had a 16 in favor, 5 against vote. But I would say for all the merchants that were in the room, I had gotten texts from almost like a dozen more that were unable to attend that told me also that they were in favor of the property being built as a hotel. And I think the consensus from the group when we got these presentations, this wasn't just a vote that we took on a whim, right? Wes explained we had the groups each had multiple meetings getting as much information about this as we could. We had a presentation from Mr. Mita. We had Dottie, the city solicitor, come in, and she explained what rehabilitation versus redevelopment was. And we made this decision based off the facts that we received. And I also do want to touch, I saw a group I guess took something that I said at a meeting. They said I said redevelopment versus I don't know. I honestly, they kind of blew it up into this big thing. They're like, oh, now they're changing the wording. No, that was just like my mistake. Like I said, redevelopment versus like rehabilitation, which to me is kind of one and the same, but they do mean different things. But either way, long story short, what was pitched to us is the understanding that unfortunately this property will never again be an amusement park. So the choice for us is not amusement park or hotel, because that's not what's on the table. What's on the table is hotel or 10 to 14 more storefronts in an area that I don't think need any more storefronts. So that was the choice that we were making. Do we support a hotel or do we support development of 10 to 14 storefronts at that location? So I think as a business owner, it was pretty clear that from the votes from both districts that the business community stands behind this project, from my perspective anyway.
So you're saying that I can't click my heels together 3 times and create an amusement park at 6th and the Boardwalk? No.
I mean,
okay.
I think this is like one topic that I think everyone would be in line with. Everybody wants it to be an amusement park, right? But that's just not the reality. So no, and you can't click your heels, and it's never going to be an amusement park ever again. And I don't know, I kind of get frustrated with the groups that are like proposing all of these things. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, a private citizen privately owns commercial land, and he is 100% in his right to build 10 to 14 more storefronts at that site. And we don't live in a communist country. You can't tell him you can't do that, right? So that's my 2 cents.
So I guess my next question is more directed for Wes. One of the big things that everybody with these groups that are talking about, opposing the project is declaring this a redevelopment zone or now see, I'm saying it wrong too. I don't want to get
in need of rehabilitation.
An area in need of rehabilitation. Are you, one of their concerns is that zoning privilege that could potentially be granted to Wonderland will pass its way down the boardwalk. You have a very large property. Is it something that you and your merchants feel is a potential danger?
So that was, if there was one hurdle that our group probably had to get over, which is why we had multiple meetings and we didn't rush a vote, it was that exact topic. That's a great question. That's why we asked the city solicitor to come in, and she explained it very well, that it is, when the way redevelopment works, it's for that specific property only, not for the Boardwalk district, and that there's no like backdoor like attorney thing being like, oh, well, you did it for the Wonderland property, you have to do it for this one. It has absolutely no bearing on that. You can't play that card. They would have to go through the exact same process and try to get it, but they can't use like this as like a precedent to say, well, you did it for them, now you got to do it for us. Because that actually was a concern for the Boardwalk, because the Boardwalk doesn't want the whole place turning into hotels. I do think it's also pretty notable that we haven't had a new hotel in 60 years. So the Soleil project's been sitting there since, 10 years now. No one's jumped when interest rates were 3%. I think I think what people that don't fully understand is that in a lot of ways we're really lucky that you have Mr. Mita living in Ocean City, cares about the town a great deal, and has the ability to do this with keeping like the Wonderland, kind of like the amusement concept alive, by keeping the carousel and the Ferris wheel and things like that. Like, you're not gonna, there is no one coming behind him to like do something else if this project doesn't work. No, the redevelopment now is no longer happening down the Boardwalk, is no longer a concern. That was articulated very well to the group.
So interestingly, I don't know if Wes or Caitlin, if you guys are aware of this, but the Flanders was built in 1923, I think it was. And it wasn't built by a developer. It was built by the community, the Chamber of Commerce, and they They got business people and families involved in putting the money together to build the Flanders Hotel. And the reason they did that was because the bridge going from New Jersey to Pennsylvania was recently opened, and there were 2 hotels being built in Atlantic City, and they were very concerned about losing traction as a resort. So the city actually, the community came together and built the Flanders a little over 100 years ago. I just find it ironic that here we are 100 years later, that a new luxury hotel is being proposed, and some of the proponents are saying that it's the death knell of the resort. And you know, I also, some of the shade that was thrown on you, Wes, not you personally, but the Boardwalk merchants, was I couldn't shake it, because if anyone has a real stake in the success of both the Boardwalk and the city, and if anyone has their thumb on the business community of the Boardwalk, and no offense, Caitlin, your thumb is on the avenue, right? The Boardwalk merchants certainly have a, you know, as way better understanding of Boardwalk business. So I think it was important for both of your organizations, but the Boardwalk merchants especially, to be heard. Wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't you both agree?
100%. You know, we're a traditional town. They always say that about Ocean City. You got a business that's been here 100 years, the Gillian family doing what they've been doing. There's a lot of like emotion that gets into that. A lot of people don't like change. Like, it's just a human, especially in a town like Ocean City. They just don't want it. They want to keep it how it's always been. And unfortunately, things do change eventually. 100 years was a heck of a run for an amusement park, for any business. I mean, you know, so we definitely thought that the opinion of, you know, we're a tourism town. I don't know how you don't value what the Boardwalk community thinks, and the downtown community for that matter. The hotel is could be an anchor, an exciting thing. It could be bringing more economy to this town, because they can provide weddings in the wintertime. They're keeping the Wonderland like theme down there. It's a type of hotel that frankly doesn't exist in this town right now. And you can just look kind of down the coast to see what Icona looks like. We don't have an Icona here. If somebody's willing to put $150 million into a project in our town to create like more reasons for people to come to Ocean City, isn't that what we're rooting for? Isn't that what we want? I fail to see the problem here, or the complaining about it, I guess.
Yeah. And
Can I go
I agree.
Real quick, Drew?
I think. Sorry.
I just had a question for Caitlin.
Right,
Wes, we kind of covered, you know, the objections that you got and that were cleared up from your organization. You know, you said you did have a couple people who voted against it. What were the downtown merchants' concerns about this project coming in the town?
Which is always our hot button topic, which is parking. The feel or the concern was that there's not enough parking in the current proposal for the project. So there was a fear that people would take up parking downtown, and, you know.
You have a 2-hour time limit on your meters. That's going to be a lot of moving around for people,
yeah.
You know.
That was the concern. I feel like there wasn't a parking lot. Like, Wonderland brought how many thousands of people per day in the summer? They didn't have a parking lot. And this hotel has 250 rooms. They're providing 375 parking spots. I fail to see the parking argument there. And one thing I do want to talk about is, like, what did this vote really even mean, right? What between our two groups? Obviously, us voting this way doesn't mean the project's happening. But for us as groups, it really gives the council a really good understanding of where the business community stands on this issue. And one thing that is really important about this vote is that we voted in its current conception. So if Mr. Mita decides to take away the Ferris wheel from his plans, then our vote no longer stands with that project. It only stands as he proposed it, which for a lot in our group, I think one of the big things that did keep coming up was the fact that he was willing. He's not in the entertainment industry, right? He's in hotels, but he was willing to invest in a Ferris wheel and trying to rehab the one that we currently have in his project to maintain that family-friendly atmosphere that is so important to everyone in our community, right? He's willing to make sure that the skyline of Ocean City stays the same way with that Ferris wheel. And that, I think, was a really big proponent on why a lot of people voted yes. Like, he's willing to keep that, which is a really important part of why I think, even for my vote, why I voted yes. So, I think it's really important for people to understand that vote is for the current concept. So if he takes away parking, takes away any of the amusements that he proposed, then it doesn't stand.
And that's the same for the boardwalk as well. Like
So, just in this quick conversation and hearing what you guys have to say and the facts that are presented to you, I think, Wes, you made a really good point. Like, there's nobody coming behind Mr. Mita to do anything different. He has said in all of his presentations, if anybody wants to buy this from me, I will happily sell it to you. And last I've heard, no one's made him an offer.
And the property, from my understanding, was offered to every amusement park operator in a 500-mile radius, right? And no takers.
No takers at all. No.
And
within our board meeting, it was articulated incredibly well how the reasons for that. Like, it's just it's not a doable project.
The costs of deconstruction, reconstruction, and rides are just you can't make a viable business with the cost of it.
And a payroll that frankly is 100% increase from where it was 8 years ago or so. Like, in a 60-day window to make money, it's very difficult when you have to employ 100 plus kids. It's tough.
So I guess, if I could ask, one more question here. Assuming this goes through, assuming that, redevelopment zone is granted, the project takes place, what's the best case scenario if the project goes through for your organizations? What do you guys feel will happen? Will we see the boardwalk be more year round? Do we expect, there's a lot of talk now. They're still revisiting what we talked about on our last episode, these shut down stores. Are we going to see no more vacant stores? Like, what is the best case scenario here for both your organizations?
Well, I think that, and this is why this project, while it is on the boardwalk, and Eustace explained this in his presentation for us, I'm sure he did it for Caitlin also, it is going to be a year-round thing. I mean, as it stands right now, there's only a handful. The Flanders Yacht Club, maybe I'm forgetting somebody. There's not a ton of places that have weddings, real big events in Ocean City, specifically in the off season. So
the Yacht Club doesn't do them in the off season, right?
So you're talking about possible an increase in year-round economy. I have a store in Stone Harbor. Whenever there's a wedding, the girls go down and they shop on that day. That's when the downtown will get a nice little shot on that weekend, I'm sure. When you got 100 plus people in town for a wedding and they got some time to kill, they're going to be going to the downtown or the boardwalk. You give people something excited and new to look forward to, in the next year or two. Which right now you have a vacant lot, essentially. And that's it. So best case scenario is that it would go through, and then you would see a boost in summertime economy. You would see the type of people coming to Ocean City that maybe are passing right now because, there's a lot of places to stay in Ocean City, but they're kind of Saturday to Saturday, like duplex houses, things like that. And maybe the hotels that are in town aren't up to their standard. No disrespect to the hotels that are in this town right now, but what Icona is not in this town right now. You may get somebody that would decide, like, I would love to come, can't do a Saturday to Saturday. Maybe I'll do a Monday to Wednesday at the brand new hotel that I can go on TripAdvisor and look at all the other ones that he has and know what you're getting. It still has a Wonderland kind of theme to it. There's a lot of upside to that, a lot of excitement to that, and a lot of things that make Ocean City, the greatest family resort. So
you won't have to bring your own sheets.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Plus, it's a huge plus.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Caitlin, what about the downtown? What do you think will be the impact of the downtown if this passes, and what kind of drove you guys to lead that to that positive vote?
I mean, I think it's very clear the clientele that Mr. Rita has in his brand. So I think the excitement from the businesses in the downtown was having, a very higher end clientele coming into town in a year-round capacity. One of the things that Mr. Rita pitched was having a shuttle that would run from his properties all around town to bring people to alleviate some of those parking issues, right? It's like, okay, you can park, leave your car here, and then we'll shuttle you around to the downtown, to, the Bay, to a couple of the different areas in the community. So I think the downtown is looking forward to having any type of increase in year-round business, myself included in that. And one thing I do want to interject that I would hope that people would start considering when they have these conversations is, is the risk of possibly a no vote for this project, is the risk of having a vacant property worth that? Sure, we could have a parking lot there, but that parking lot isn't bringing people over the bridge. So I think it's really exciting for someone like myself in the business community to have a developer of that caliber willing to bring people into our community as a tourism community to bring them over the bridge. And I think the other proposed projects that could feasibly happen at that location aren't things that are really going to bring people over the bridge. And if Mr. Mita ends up not getting the approval to build the hotel, he said, okay, yep, I might do 10 to 14 storefronts, or I might list it for $25 million, which if someone else has to buy it at that price tag, what are they putting there? So those are the things that I would hope people would start considering when they are, going on Facebook and lashing out at the business community who, are looking just to better the businesses that are here and bring people over the bridge.
So you make a good point, as did Wes. And I think, most of us in town, when the news broke that Wonderland was closing, it hurt, right? It hurt us all. It is a very emotional thing, something that you grew up on, right? And then Mr. Mita announced his plans to build a hotel. And as Wes said, change is hard. And I think a lot of people initially had a kind of a negative reaction to a hotel being built in that location. But as you said, Caitlin, once you really, look at the entire picture, and it's not a choice between a hotel or a new amusement park. It's a choice between, a new hotel and maybe retail, new retail, maybe a parking lot, maybe the site sits vacant for 5 years till we get a new council and he takes a run at it again. I don't know, but I think once you put all the pieces on the table, it feels to me like most of us are coming to a more positive and favorable view of the hotel.
Drew, you make a really good point. if the project doesn't happen. You guys brought up before how downtown is towards the end has some open stores. That end of the boardwalk, I mean, the boardwalk, the whole town would suffer without an anchor on the boardwalk without something like this. But that end of the boardwalk, if this isn't done, I mean, there won't be at that end of the boardwalk probably. Not the way you see it right now. I don't know how they survive without an anchor down there. It's going to be very difficult for them. They at least, if the project is coming and there's some excitement for it, people will walk down there to see the construction. They'll see the building. To see like the progress. And there's the hope of like those merchants know that in like a couple of years we got our hope. We have our anchor back and it's a whole new ball game. You remove that hope. I mean, I would hope that when city council is making their decision on this, that they don't listen to like just the loudest people against it, because there's a ton of people in town that do support it. You just don't always hear those people talking a lot of times. But the business community, the town itself will certainly suffer if it's not built.
And that's why I think it was really important to hear your voice and to hear Caitlin's voice and to put all of this out there. It's really important to hear that, because you're right. There are some loud voices out there, and your voices needed to be heard. So we appreciate you coming on the show.
Appreciate you guys having us, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. If anything, you guys and what you guys do and what your organizations do are what, quote unquote, puts the asses in the seats. So, if you guys are the ones that are struggling and you guys are having a hard time, ultimately, it's going to hurt everybody. I've been weighing back and forth on this project, for a long time, because it is, like you said, there's a lot of emotion attached to it. And I think that both of your organizations did a really fine job of taking that out and looking at the facts and looking at the bottom lines, as business people do, and realizing, hey, maybe this is the best case forward of what we have on the table right now.
Right.
Absolutely.
So,
any closing thoughts, Caitlin?
I mean, I'm just glad it's not like a Marriott, like it's a really beautiful.
Hey, I'm a Marriott guy.
It looks like the Grand Floridian.
you're a Holiday Inn guy, Drew. Don't try to play it up like you go to the Marriott.
No.
Marriott Platinum, buddy.
Well, and I one last.
That's a good point. That's a very good point, Caitlin.
Yeah, and I think Wes said it really great. Not to diminish the really great accommodations that we have in town, but there are people that have very specific taste on what they expect out of a hotel that we don't have here. And I have friends of mine that, they can't commit to a week in Ocean City because of their jobs, but they don't have a place where they could go very easily, that has the amenities that property is going to have. So I don't know. I hope people can look at it with a little bit more of an open mind and understand the facts are, we're not looking at a hotel versus an amusement park. We're looking at a hotel versus just storefronts or a parking lot. So that's all I got.
Great.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Any closing thoughts for you, Wes?
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on that really quick, it's not a Marriott, and it's the closest thing to kind of the traditional.
Why is everybody dissing a Marriott?
Well, in Ocean City, we're kind of like mom and pop run, and I mean, Eustace Mead does live in town. He does care very much about Ocean City. He's if you've been to any of his presentations, he clearly knows the history of the town. I don't think he'd be doing this project if he didn't have he didn't really care about Ocean City and didn't have the ability to be able to have his other businesses can support this project. I think he wants to leave, like, this is like his legacy. He wants to like leave, like how Flanders, like you discussed with the Flanders 100 years ago. It's been 100 years. I think it's time to maybe have something else new. And I think that it's important that new is not always a terrible thing. That change is not always awful. When you get past the emotion of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. Very true. Well, Wes, Caitlin, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your time and your, candid speak and being vulnerable here with us today about an issue that's definitely touched, not just residents, but everyone that comes and visits Ocean City. So this is probably going to come up to vote here in the next couple months. So we'll see what happens, but maybe we'll have you back on again after that. So, but
thanks a lot for having us, guys. Appreciate it a lot.
Yeah,
no
thanks
problem.
for your time, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. This has been the OCNJ Local, your podcast for everything happening here in America's